Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Katarina Martinez. Thanks for joining our live broadcast for Virtual Visitas. I'm a current senior here at Harvard. I live in Adams House. It's one of the 12 upperclassmen houses, and I've really loved my experience here. The point of our panel today is to basically talk through some questions. This one is sort of like specifically on like multicultural organizations and the experience here at Harvard. So I'm joined by a couple of students. One of the nice things that we can do today is that we can answer your questions. So for anyone who's watching on our website, if you join the chat, you can actually live ask us questions so that we can answer everything that you're thinking about. And overall, just sort of like talk about our experience, especially because all of you have been admitted to Harvard, and so you're really looking for like what it's like to go here and how to make your decision, and like hopefully we can give you our wise words of wisdom. I know as a senior there are a lot of things that I did well, but maybe could have done differently too. So it's nice to get that perspective. So, like I said before, my name is Kat. I'm from Miami, Florida. I grew up there, and then I came here to do all my 4 years of college. This was basically the first time that I had like ever traveled anywhere to New England, so it was a really interesting experience. And then in terms of academic stuff, I study biology, and I'm getting a minor in art history. But I'm going to pass it over to Mark, and he will do a little introduction to you, and then we'll start doing questions after that.
Hi everyone, my name is No Marc. I am a senior here at Harvard living in Dunster House, also from the South Florida area in West Palm Beach County. Originally from Manila, Philippines. I moved to the US when I was 8. Currently studying government and Japanese, joint concentration with a minor in French. And I've also loved my time here at Harvard, and I'm so excited to welcome you all to Virtual Visitas. Even if you couldn't make it to campus, we hope that we can answer all your questions and show you that Harvard is a great and welcoming place for anyone from any background. And we look forward to answering your questions.
Perfect. Hi everyone, my name is David Alvarez Sanchez. I'm a current sophomore here at Harvard. I'm originally from Los Angeles, California, so West Coast. And just a little bit about me here on campus. I study government like No Marc, and I also have a secondary in Spanish, so I'm really interested in Latin American studies, as well as various politics, and I'm really interested in cultural organizations too as well. So would love to give a perspective on the Latino community here on campus too if you have questions about that. And just to again, drive home, we're really excited to welcome you guys virtually here to Harvard and answer your questions.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, guys. Okay, so one of the questions we get pretty commonly is people asking about how our transition was to Harvard and maybe some things that you can sort of anticipate. So I guess our first question, and I don't know if I should direct it at someone, maybe David, you want to start us off. Can you tell us about your transition to Harvard and how your background may have impacted that transition?
Yeah, so I just think, just geographically, first off, I'm born and raised in LA, California. I had never been to my first time being to the East Coast was Visitas, actually. So I had never been to the East Coast. I only thought about it for college. It was a completely new environment, so I really wasn't sure how it was going to be, to go 3,000 miles away from home, and when I didn't really plan on, all of a sudden going out to college out here, but I found, the community to be really accepting and really warm and welcoming. I think that, one thing that I was afraid about Harvard is that, it has sort of this, really, what can be an intimidating name, and I was not sure how the experience would match up with that. But I came here and found that, we have really great support network. When you're a freshman, you have a peer advising fellow who is an upperclassman who is assigned to you, who can literally just show you the ropes of Harvard in a really informal, fun way. So, for example, as someone who's really politically engaged, my path was the vice president of an organization on campus called the Institute of Politics, which is an organization for students run out of the Harvard Kennedy School. And she really just encouraged me to apply to different programs, and I actually now help co-lead the Politics of Race Ethnicity, which is a program that she helped start. So I just think that was they do a really great job of matching you guys with upperclassmen who want to study the similar things that you want to do, as well as people who have been through Harvard for a couple of years and can really give you some good advice about how to navigate that. So not only do you have students, you also have faculty, like your academic advisor, who can help you navigate through classes. I know that's something that I was concerned about at first too, because I wasn't sure how, when you're in high school, you kind of have your courses laid out, and all of a sudden have all these options. You're kind of like a kid in a candy store. Like, how do I, there's so many great things. How do I sort of narrow down what I want to do? And I think that faculty really do a great job of helping and advising students through that. And then you also have your proctor, who is essentially, your Harvard version of your RA, who is someone who's most likely a grad student or an administrator who, lives near your dorm and can help facilitate weekly study breaks where everybody can go and, meet for food or snacks and just, relax from things that they've been doing through the week. And just again, like another just really great way to have an advising network within your living community. So I felt that the support within Harvard really did help facilitate my transition from someone who is low income, first generation college student of color, and I think that I really wasn't sure how my experience would be coming to a school like Harvard, but I think that Harvard really did step up and exceed my expectations in that respect.
Do you want to add anything?
So for me, definitely echoing the advising part of it. So I'm actually a peer advising fellow myself, and one of the main reasons I became one was transitioning college as also an Asian American, first generation, low income college student immigrant from the Philippines. I wasn't sure how I was going to handle this college move without my parents there because we didn't have the money to help them move up, help me move in. But I think with my peer advising fellow, my proctor, and also my academic advisor there, before even the first week, emailing me already, asking me questions about any concerns that I had, made it known that Harvard was a welcoming place and that there were people here to help me. And starting classes, I went to my professor or teaching fellow's office hours. I knew there was the Bureau of Study Council and the Writing Center also to help me with writing because I never felt like I was a strong writer. And that all helped me realize that Harvard's a very welcoming place, regardless of the background that I come from or whatever strengths or weaknesses that I had academically. And now as a senior, I look back at that and I reflect on those very strong introductory advisors that I had that I still keep in touch with actually. And now I'm also an advisor myself. So I think it's very much this community that welcomes all the people from any background and helps each other out through the end.
Yeah, no, I agree for sure. I'll also just add, because I was thinking about it like right before we started this, that when I was a freshman, some of the different cultural groups sort of banded together to develop like a Big Sid Little Sid program. So when I was a freshman, I got partnered up with someone who was also Hispanic like me. I'm Cuban from Miami, and so I was able to talk about like her experience and how she'd been happy at Harvard, and then sort of get into the nitty gritty too. Like we got frozen yogurt one of the first days of school and sat down in the yard, which is this like big beautiful space by all the freshman dorms for anyone who hasn't been to campus. And we just sort of talked about like very specific classes I'd wanted to take. I was deciding between a couple science classes, and so having someone who could like very much tell me like what some of my exams were going to be like and how I was like going to be like experiencing the different classes on like a very specific level outside of like whatever the syllabus says, I thought was just like hugely helpful. And I also think Harvard does a really good job of pairing you with roommates who you get along very well with, but may not necessarily be from the same place as you. So I thought it was such a blessing that my roommate was from like essentially 30 minutes outside of Boston, because for a girl coming like from Miami who like had never worn anything wool in her entire life, knowing that like Anne knew like where to buy wool clothing and like what kinds of socks to get was just like so great, because you have a million people telling you like their advice on like what is the right jacket and how do you dress yourself, and it's all really helpful advice, but having like one roommate that you can like kind of run everything by I thought was super nice. So you've got, whether it's like your proctor to your freshman roommates, you've got people who are like excited and willing to like help you with your transition, and everyone's going through a similar set of things, maybe not down to the specifics, but everyone feels you on the transition element. So it's nice that people are there for you. Okay, well that's awesome. So we have another question. The question is, what were some of your biggest fears coming into Harvard, and how did those translate to your experience? I don't know if someone wants to cover that.
Okay. Yeah, I guess I'll start. So I think that, like I mentioned before earlier, my other question, I think that my biggest fear, I think coming to Harvard would be, like how would I, match up to this experience as someone who is, the first person in his family to go to college, as someone who has, really never known anyone who applied, nevertheless went to an Ivy League school. I wasn't sure how, what I had been accustomed to doing in high school, how would that translate to college, and whether or not, I would able to, to succeed here academically. And I think that that was something that I really was worried about. And I think that as actually coming here and seeing how, as I mentioned, how supportive everyone was, how there's institutions on campus like everything from peer tutoring to the Bureau of Study Council, which does run courses from everything from specific course tutoring to things like general, like how do I study more effectively, how do I read more effectively, things like that. So I think that that Harvard does recognize that kids are coming from all over, the world and from every background imaginable. So I think that, they really do try to make Harvard an equalizer of sorts and making sure that everybody can succeed here academically. So I was really, really, really pleased by that, and also pleased by the fact that because I was in a lot of intro social science courses, which tended to be on the larger side, I wasn't sure how I would be able to get a more personalized educational experience. But Harvard has what are called sections, which is when if you're in a class that's above a certain number, I believe it's like between 30 or 40, then you're required to divide up the class into smaller sections and then meet outside of the lecture time to go and have, to basically review the course material, to ask questions. It's normally headed by a teaching fellow for the course, so normally like a grad student who is, studied this topic extensively and will be able to go and answer your questions or give feedback on your papers and things like that. So I really appreciate how there's a balance here at Harvard. I feel like a lot of things are balanced where you're able to, get, the larger academic experience as well as a more personalized one. So I found the academic transition was one that I was really worried about, but I think that it's been a really great experience so far. So I'm really pleased for that.
I also think maybe not all fears necessarily have to be academic, but to sort of echo what you were saying, like I was pretty concerned that Harvard was going to be like super competitive, and like one of the most like sort of jarring but cool experiences, my first week I was taking this like introductory life sciences course on cell biology, and we got our first like homework assignment, which we just call problem sets or P-sets for short, and it was like 10 different questions on like the first amount of the lecture, and our like super famous professor who makes these like really awesome like into the cell biology videos and is just like such an incredible human, got up at the front of the class and he was like, your first problem assignment has been posted on the website and none of you can do it by yourself. And we were like, okay. And like essentially what he was trying to say was that like the problem set had been designed to be collaborative such that like a lot of the answers would come from like reviewing the course material and like looking at the textbook, but like a little bit of it was going to be like sort of out of the box thinking, and the best way to do it was just to be like bouncing off of other people. So like in my freshman dorm there was a common room in the basement, and I sat down with like a bunch of other students who happened to be taking the course. I had like only just met them, but like it was so nice that like right off the bat we were sort of like forced to like think about like what we could contribute to the conversation, and like if people had worked in a lab with like a similar concept, like they would bring stuff up, or if someone had like done a specific project in their high school biology class for that, like they brought it up. So it was like cool that you were like depending on other people in a really nice way. So that was sort of one of my bigger fears. We also just got another question, which is exciting, and it's a good one. It says, is there a great deal of self-segregation on campus, or do friend groups compose a variety of the diverse cultures at the university?
I can take this one. And for me, I think my friend groups tend to be pretty diverse. I mean, I think in this panel right now, we have Kat, who I'm on the senior class committee with, and I feel that's a very diverse group of not just cultural and ethnic, but just different backgrounds geographically as well. And so we all come together because we want to make the senior class committee and the senior year experience very fun and inclusive for all students. And so that means having a very diverse group of people. And then I work with David at the UMRP, and that's also a very diverse group of people to make sure that all the groups of Harvard are represented, and we can speak about all our different experiences regardless of where we come from. But in general, I know my dorm and my freshman entryway and now my upperclassmen house are also very diverse places. I think I can choose to go to the Philippine Forum, for example, if I really wanted a community that understands where I come from and the kinds of things we do culturally. However, I also go to my clubs like the Harvard Yearbook, or I'm also a peer advising fellow, and so those kinds of activities just expose me to different people, and I make different friend groups because of that. And I don't say that my friend groups are just specifically Filipino or Asian American, but rather quite a diverse group of people. However, I remember my freshman year, though, I joined the Chinese Students Association because my friends for my entryway wanted to bring me to the events, and I made a lot of friends there that just happened to be Chinese American. And it doesn't mean that I was solely looking for Chinese American friends or people who identified as that, but it just happened to be that that was a fun group and they were great people, so I hung out with them. And so I think it really depends on which groups I'd want to join, which groups are fun to me and what I want to do on this campus, but there's no, oh, if you are this race or ethnicity, you have to join this group and those are your only friends, because I feel that I have a very diverse group of friends personally.
Did you want to add anything?
Yeah, just echoing what is being said, I think that, Harvard really prides itself on having a diverse campus and on incorporating a lot of diverse voices, be that within the classroom, outside the classroom, through extracurricular activities. So yeah, I would say that if you had to ask me, for example, to like typify like one of my friends, or to like say like, oh, what is one of my like typical Harvard friend looks like, I could tell you, because like honestly, like I have, my roommate who, is also from Miami, and who's like, really involved in the Cuban Causa, which is the Cuban Harvard Society. Whereas then I have my friend who is, really interested in English, and, does a lot of, short story and literature writing and poetry. And it's me, and I'm like really politically involved in government, and I'm also involved in Latino culture groups. So I feel like people just like do so many different things that it's, nobody ever just does like one thing, or just, have just one experience. I feel like people are just incredibly diverse here. So I think that it's definitely one that doesn't, I guess, like self-segregate.
Yeah. I also think it's cool to think about how Harvard has sort of like changed over time. So for anyone who doesn't necessarily know how a housing system works here at Harvard, all the freshmen live together like at the heart of campus next to all of the classrooms. And then sort of at the end of the year, you choose a group of students that you want to move into an upperclassman house with, and there are 12 of them. And so the nice thing about that is that you don't get to pick which of the houses you get sorted into, but you do have your friend group moving with you. So that way you know that you always have sort of your support system no matter which house you get into. And they're all great and all have similar facilities. So it's sort of just like the fun quirks of each house. And it used to be such that you could like apply to a specific house. So naturally houses would have a little bit of self-segregation and sort of character, where they were like maybe the more athletic house or the more artsy house. And I'm sure that was like a somewhat nice system, but like now we've changed it such that people are randomly assorted into the houses. And so of course you might have like your small group of friends, and you may all have met each other through like the club field hockey team. So you're sort of like a group of athletes moving into a house, but you're surrounded by other people who all got randomly assorted. So you're forced to meet people that you maybe wouldn't have otherwise met. And it's like such a blessing, because like you just have like such an awesome mix of people, and you think maybe the first or second day that you move into your upperclassman house that you won't really have much to talk about with the group of students who seem like maybe more like poetic or like more like athletic than you, or like for any reason you think that you're not going to be super close, and like within a couple months you're all sitting in the dining hall together and all working together all the time. So it's like definitely like on like Harvard's part sort of like making it such that like there's really no way to self-segregate, and it's like a really beautiful thing, I think. We also have another question. We have, are there opportunities to party for those extroverts who don't want to necessarily take part in final clubs? Also, do students go into Boston much? I can start that one off. For anyone who doesn't necessarily know what a final club is, it's kind of akin to a fraternity. They're not necessarily associated with Harvard, but sometimes populated by Harvard students. And so some students who want to like essentially join something fraternity-esque can join that. But it's not necessarily a big part of Harvard's social scene. I think sometimes we talk about them often, but the social scene, I think, at least in my experience, is like very much surrounded by the extracurricular that you're part of. So I've been on a dance team here, and I think that that's been one way that I sort of like hang out with friends and like go to like parties with my friends. And so if there's something happening, I'll definitely go with girls on my dance team. Sometimes we'll set up like, it's just like a mixer, like we'll set up a party between there's like a club spikeball team here on campus, and so the dance team will set up a mixer with the club spikeball team, and we'll sort of like meet in someone's room and hang out to sort of address the opportunities to party if you're not necessarily as extroverted. I know I also tend to be pretty outgoing, but sometimes like a more chill setting. I think one of the great things about having like close ties with your roommates, and pretty much every room here has a common room, is that you can always have like a very like chill, cool night with like your friends, and you don't necessarily have to be like bumping up and down to music. I love me a good dance party, but it's also really nice to like just have like a quieter night in. And students, I do think, go into Boston pretty often, probably more so your senior year, because if you want to like go to like bars in Boston, you probably have to wait until you're 21. And so you don't really turn 21 until, I guess, I know for me, like sort of the middle end of my junior year or my senior year, because there's also just so much happening on campus that I feel like it's hard sometimes to make the time to go into Boston. It's super easy. It takes like 10 minutes. But if you're like thinking about going to someone's birthday party, and then you want to go to an a cappella concert, and then you want to go back to your room because you're meeting up with another friend to go to some other event, it's like easy to sort of get lost in the shuffle there and not go into Boston as much. But if you want to make an event of it, whether it's like for dinner or for a cool event or for like a movie, I think people definitely make the time. And there's a office, which I don't use enough, called Innings and Outings, where you can actually get all sorts of perks, whether they're in sort of the like Cambridge area or Boston area, where things are discounted for Harvard students, whether it's like movie tickets or like museum fees. So many things just come free with your Harvard ID. Like we have admission to like tons of museums in Boston, which is awesome. So I'm rambling, but yeah, Boston's great. I don't know if you guys want to add anything.
Yeah, I actually wanted to add right now. I didn't have time to change, but I actually just came from a run to Boston. I woke up this morning and I had breakfast in the dining hall, and I was like, what do I do now? I'm a senior and I finished my thesis and things are done. And I just went on a jog to Boston along the Charles River. I'm listening to music, and then I go along Newbury Street and the Boston Commons, and you see everyone. Right now, everyone's preparing for the Boston Marathon this Monday, so you see like Boston's a very vibrant scene of just people coming together in the center of this the city. Downtown Crossing and Park Street has great restaurants and shopping centers, but this isn't just senior year. I remember my freshman year, I went on average to Boston about twice a week actually. I had Fridays off and Tuesdays off freshman spring, so I just really went to Boston and visited those museums that we have access to for free because of Harvard IDs, went shopping, and just did a lot of things that I never thought I could do because I thought I would be too busy. But honestly, if you make time for something, you will be able to do it. And it's a great city to live in because of all the opportunities that we have here.
Yeah, just to go on about going into Boston, I totally am someone who, as a sophomore, through the time I've spent at Harvard, had ample time to go to Boston and enjoy time at Harvard. So, for example, I have a few friends from back home in LA who go to BU, so I make time once every 2 months or so to go have lunch down by BU. And I think that one thing that I want to add, being from a town that doesn't really have a centralized transportation system, I think has been really refreshing to come here to Boston and be able to, be in a suburb and be able to have a very direct line to be able to go and say, hey, I do want to be in Boston, or hey, I do want to go to Newbury Street, I want to go to, the Boston Common, which is like, the Boston Central Park, basically, and you can hop in on the subway for a really affordable price and just go take a straight, have a straight point of access to go there. So I really think that, it's again, like if a lot of things at Harvard, it's definitely like up to you and up to your schedule and up to you, like if this weekend's, kind of been, like a more hectic weekend than usual and you want to just stay in, as Kat was saying, and just like do, just like Netflix and hang out, then I think that that's something that you can do. If you also just want to go, you want to go have fun, you want to go try something new that's outside of Cambridge, you can also have, a direct way to go there or see friends. MIT is nearby. There are colleges, like I said, in BU or Northeastern nearby, so there is a really great network of other college students here in the Boston area too that we do also partner with for events or go. You do have access to it if you have friends that go there too.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. New question. How involved do people typically get on campus with extracurriculars? I've heard it can be hard to be a member of some of the more competitive clubs. Also, what is a typical time commitment to academics, socializing, and extracurriculars on an average weekday or weekend?
I can start this one off. I don't know, competitive clubs, I mean, I don't know exactly what that means. So there might be a process called the comp process that some clubs have. I don't exactly know what comp stands for. I think it's like compete or competency. And so I think that's more of a way to see how involved you really want to get with the club and see if you have the skills necessary to be part of the club. For example, I'm part of Harvard Yearbook, and we do have a comp process. However, it's a semester-long process during the fall where you get to learn how to use a camera. And it's important because they don't want to just give you a camera when you've never used one before and then go out in the world and just break it or not take great pictures. But it's really a process to help you learn. No one is cut off at the end as long as you go to each comp process or comp meeting where you get to learn about how to take photos of athletic events when everything's moving so quickly or at night when there's not as much light available. So we learned all of that during the fall semester, and then in the end, we become official yearbook members. I haven't participated in any other clubs that have that process. Philippine Forum, you just join as if you're interested in the Philippine culture. And so I think there are some competitive clubs in the sense of they have requirements for you to join given the requirements of that club for you to use their equipment properly or to write great stories, depending if it's a publication or not, just so to maintain the quality of the group. But it's not like you're going to be denied access to it if you don't try, even after you try hard, because usually I think people do get into these clubs as long as you show effort and you really do show that you're interested because of the quality of work you produce.
Yeah. I think it's kind of nice that like because we have so many different clubs, they come in a lot of different forms. So some clubs, for example, like I know speaking from experience with dance, I had to audition to be a member of the Crimson Dance Team, and that was a competitive dance program, and we were going to different competitions and performing at the basketball games, and so that was a pretty big time commitment, and they required a lot of us, and so naturally there was like a pretty like competitive audition process because they wanted to take girls who had dance experience. But there's also tons of groups on campus where you can join if you don't have as much dance experience. And so I know, like, despite being on a dance team and being from Miami, like I didn't have very much hip hop experience. So I was able to be in a hip hop show just this semester, like a couple weeks ago, without ever really having any experience. And I was able to just sign up and like meet the choreographer and like meet a group of people. And so there's so many different groups. But I think another thing in that vein is that, of course, groups have like different varying sort of like commitment levels on maybe how many hours you're going to be doing something. But they also sort of fall into like broad general categories where some groups might be more pre-professional, some might be more related to the arts, some might be more related to athletics, and you don't have to like dip into every single one of these pools. But I do find that people tend to like maybe sort of have like involvement in like 2 or 3 different groups, and they do end up being pretty different. So like I love being part of, like, I work at the admissions office, and so that's, I guess maybe that would fall in like a pre-professional area because I get to like work there and sort of like communicate with people and do like a lot of outreach, whereas like dance is sort of like more fun and falls into the arts category. And so they have different time commitments, but maybe if you have like one big extracurricular that you're pretty fond of, you might be putting like 3 to 4 hours in per week because you have like maybe meetings with the board. And then for other extracurriculars that maybe don't have as much time required, so like when I just signed up to be the part of the like hip hop team, that was only like 1 hour a week. So just to answer like how much time people generally spend, I would say maybe like I sometimes spend a lot more time out of the classroom on extracurriculars than I do for homework on some days, but it's because I love what I'm doing. So it's not a bore to like go to dance practice. It's like amazing. And so I would probably say that like every day I have maybe 2 to 3 hours of class, and then I'll spend like 2 to 3 hours of my time in a combination of extracurriculars, sometimes weighing more towards like one that I'm feeling pretty excited about for that semester.
Yeah, and just to add on what was being said, I think that a really cool thing about extracurriculars that I think different from how I thought of them in high school is that everything here is very much in a semester by semester basis. So I know people, because you're here for school and to put academics first. I feel like most people do feel that way. So I think that I know friends, for example, know they're going to have a more challenging course load in the upcoming semester. So they'll decide maybe to not take on as many commitments and maybe like sort of know how to balance that with their academics. So I would say that it's totally campus acceptable to say that I want to do this next semester. I'm thinking of joining this next in the semester after that. So just I think that like being able to go and customize it to your own academic and personal schedule, I think is something that I found really awesome about extracurriculars, is that you can anytime between your freshman and senior year you can just decide to do anything you want. It's not as if like when you're a senior or an upperclassman you can't then decide, oh hey, I've always wanted to do this. You can. So I've really appreciated that freedom. I mean, as an incoming junior this fall, I plan to go and comp new things and to go and look into things more on like the writing humor section is something that I've never explored before, and that's something I want to try out. So just to emphasize that this is definitely a canvas where people can go and customize their extracurriculars to their schedule and not necessarily feel bound or tied if that's not something that you feel that would be conducive to them doing well at Harvard.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. So another question is, as an international student, how can I make sure that I have a decent level of academic preparation before coming to Harvard? I know there are introductory courses, but what would be sort of an academic baseline to me?
So for me, I'm not an international student, though I do come from a foreign country. So as in, I immigrated from the Philippines around 14 years ago. So it's been a while, and I've definitely gotten used to the American academic system, having graduated elementary, middle school, and high school here in the States. But I think something that's going to be important for every student, regardless of whether they're domestic or international, are the placement exams during the summer. Everyone will be given links to these around June, I think, where you're required to take the writing exam and the math exam. But then you'll also be able to take some in biology, chemistry, physics, the foreign languages. And these will then say what levels of classes you should be starting off with at Harvard. So I don't think there is a baseline of academic expectation required for every single student. I think once you're admitted, like the admissions office knows that you can handle Harvard academics. It just depends on which areas are you more interested in and which ones do you need more support on. given your high school background and wherever you came from. So you will get those results after taking them in June or July and discuss it with your academic advisor. And I knew I really wanted to study chemistry, so I took the biology and chemistry placement exams, also after having taken the AP exams in them. But my writing recommendation, actually, you get recommended for XPOS 20, but you can also be recommended for XPOS 10, Expository Writing 10, which is the preparatory class for that. And that's what I had been recommended for. But in the end, it's your choice to go into whatever class you feel that is right for you after having talked to your advisors, because in the end, it is your course load and your college career. But I chose to go into Expository Writing 10 so that it can build up my academic writing skills before going into writing about political science or history or English literature. But that doesn't mean that I am less competent than my other classmates or less prepared than some others, because in the end, like as a senior now, I still wrote a 110-page thesis. So I think it really depends on where you're coming from. Those placement exams will help you decide. Your academic advisors will be there to help you as well. But in the end, you are prepared. Don't feel that you are less worthy to be here than others who have taken every single AP class or felt like they already mastered multivariable calculus. Everyone here is in a different level, and you will find where you belong in terms of academics, and we will academic advisors will help you get there. Yes.
Yeah, you should enjoy your summer. I think the placement exams can be a little anxiety-inducing because you see questions and you thought you were kind of done with exams by May or so. But I don't think you should worry about doing any sort of like big preparatory work for the exams and also before you get here, because like Mark mentioned before, like you'll totally find your spot, and it'll be nice to just sort of like take a breather from the work over the summer before you get here. So don't feel like your summer should be like filled with preparing. It should be like hanging out with all the people that you like and doing the things that make you happy. And if you live somewhere warm, jump in the pool and like swim in the ocean for me, because I love the ocean. Okay, let's do another question. This person is trying to choose between Harvard and Stanford and wondering whether the on-campus culture is more artsy, social sciencey. This person loves having fascinating conversations with open-minded people and is not sure if people are engaged in that way here.
Okay, I can take this one. I think that, first I want to start this off as, someone who goes to Harvard, has never affiliated with Stanford. I can't really speak in a comparative way because I don't think that'd be fair. So I'm just gonna go off the point about, what is the discourse like at Harvard, and I think that's what the question is getting at. So to answer that question, I think that one of the most, thrilling and interesting parts about Harvard has been the amazing conversations that I've had access to. So be that, in a dining hall or in a section in my government class, talking about, I just had it in my government tutorial, which is something that all the sophomore concentrators of government have to take for our degree. We are all together and we're talking about, things like, should everyone vote? Should everyone have to vote? Should, what does democracy mean? Is it inevitable in certain cases? So just like being able to go and unpack really big abstract ideas is something that I've really enjoyed as part of my education, and something that, I think that everybody is really involved in, because, people here are very interested in things. People are passionate about all different types of stuff, and they want to talk about the world. They want to talk about what's going on. They want to have open discussions. They want to be able to say, I come from this place, and I, from what I've seen, I think this, and, I come from here, and I think that. So I think that, especially at Harvard, I think that, that type of discussion is something that definitely does happen, and it's a very discussion-focused campus, and it's one that really does encourage open discourse, and one that I think that as someone who loves to talk and loves to, debate and especially politics. So I think that in terms of politics, Harvard is definitely a space where people can engage politically in a lot of free-flowing discussion.
Yeah, awesome. I totally agree. I think the dining hall is awesome in terms of being a space for sort of informal conversation. Mm-hmm. And I spend a lot of my time in Adam's dining hall, which is my upperclassmen house, and I'm an early bird, but some of the best conversations I've ever had happen between the hours of 1 and 3 in the morning, when you kind of stop doing homework and start listening to the people next to you, and you don't realize how many interesting things they have had, or just experiences they've had. It's super cool. Okay, let's see. New question. Does applying for financial aid as an international student affect my chances of getting into Harvard? That's an awesome question. Does anyone want to cover that?
Yeah, I could definitely, or go. You can go ahead, David.
Okay, cool. So just to answer this question, so one of the great things about Harvard's financial aid, that's one of the things that I love the most as someone who, as mentioned, is really low income and really does, the reason I'm able to come to Harvard is actually through its amazing financial aid package. So I think that in terms of looking at it from a financial aid status, like how your aid is decided is looked at independent of your citizenship status. So whether you're a domestic student or an international student or an undocumented student, whatever your status may be, your aid is not affected by that. So I think that that's really great that that Harvard's not letting your citizenship status affect your application anyway. So just as a direct forward question of whether or not it affects your chances of getting into Harvard, I would say that it totally doesn't. It's not. It's Harvard doesn't hold that against you, and they realize, because then that would be the case that they'd be preferencing kids who would be able to not be on financial aid, and that would have like a financial disparity. So Harvard recognizes that that's unfair, and they would not hold it against you that you would need more financial aid or not. And I know that one concern as an international kid is that, oh, it may not be accessible to me as someone who isn't from the United States, whereas someone who is. And just know that in terms of speaking from Harvard's perspective, that citizenship status is not taken into account.
Yeah. Okay, we have another question. How is the freshman party life like?
For me, I remember, so I've always been involved in social club event planning organizations. So my freshman year, I was part of the first year social committee, FYSC, and I definitely revolved my social scene and my party life around that. For example, our very first event was called Scaritas, which was our Halloween costume catwalk dance, and I think about 1,200 people showed up to this freshman-only party out of a class of 1,600. And it was all in Annenberg Hall, where Annenberg Hall is the freshman dining hall that it already looks like the Great Hall of Hogwarts. And so with a little fog machine and spider cobwebs and fondue that was colored in red so that it looked like blood, you honestly have a great party there going on. And that continues throughout the year with Harvard-Yale tailgate. There's a lot of gingerbread decorating contests and parties for during the winter, and finally there's a freshman formal as well, which is a huge dance where everyone can participate. And so I think there are so many events happening on campus, especially during freshman year, because the freshman dean's office, the first year social committee, the freshman class committee is affiliated with the undergraduate council, the student government, all really work together to make sure that there are events accessible to everyone, regardless of what your interests are. And that's what I loved about the FYSC, because we made sure that regardless of people like to be extroverted and meet new people or be introverted, we had activities for everyone to really make sure that people felt like they had a great freshman year experience. Yeah, that's my experience from that.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. And that kind of like I mentioned before, I think often people do hang out with people that they meet in their extracurriculars. And so it's nice that if you are on some sort of club sports team or joining a new extracurricular, whether it's a cultural organization or not, if someone is throwing a birthday party or just having a get together in their room, it's pretty often that it's not even just freshmen that you're hanging out with, but maybe upperclassmen. And just from an outside of social perspective, it's nice to have people who are a little bit older than you, because they can also help you navigate Harvard. And if they're 2 years ahead of you, you're thinking about maybe what they're going to be doing post grad, and you can talk to them about it. So whether you're just hanging out with them and going to dance at a party with them, or talking to them about the best class to take, or how to write a senior thesis, the fact that Harvard is sort of just has so many generations of students interacting all the time is I think pretty awesome for both social life and just sort of overall well-being. Okay, we have another question. Between Yale and Harvard, are there any objective or cultural differentiations that you can point to? Do Boston companies recruit students from Harvard during the year, and do students take advantage of work and internship opportunities in Boston?
I can speak to the second part. I think that, again, as you touched upon before with the question that asked about Stanford and Harvard, I personally have never been to Yale, so I feel that I can't accurately give a good comparison. So just speaking to the second part of that question about internship and career and pre-professional opportunities, I'm involved with Hubs on campus, which is the Harvard Undergraduate BGLDQ Business Society. So I'm involved in pre-professional or affinity groups aimed at LGBTQ community. Additionally, through Fuerza Latina, I'm also trying to put in affinity company recruitment through the Latino community. So I think that do companies actively recruit students from Harvard? Most definitely. I think that we'd be, through our We have a Harvard Career Office who just sponsors a lot of different events, be it for a wide array of industries from banking, consulting, science, tech, even everything to like entertainment and media, to business, to finance. Honestly, any career path. I think that there's even like someone who specializes in like winemaking or something. I think like it's just like that there's so many different career paths that Harvard really does try to engage their students in, and whoever students may be interested in, they definitely have that opportunity. I would say that do students take advantage of work and internships opportunities in Boston? I think so. I think that if that's something that, I know that especially, I have a friend who is pre-med, and she interns at the Dana-Farber Institute in Boston to do science research. So I think if that's something that you could definitely take advantage of, if that's something that you want to, and balance, as we said earlier, between your course load and your own extracurriculars and other stuff that you may be doing on campus. So I have a friend also who took an internship with Senator Warren, who's the U.S. Senator for Massachusetts, and worked in her Boston office, and was able to, that was his most like extracurricular for the semester, and that's something that he used an internship as an extracurricular. So I say that if doing an internship during your time in Boston during the year is not something that maybe you'd find feasible to balance your schedule, you can also, there's so many opportunities for you to intern over the summer or even during J term, which is our winter break session. So at Harvard, we have a fairly long winter break, which is from mid-December to the end of January. So for example, in this past term, with a program in the David Rockefeller Center for Latin American Studies, I did an internship for Vice News in Mexico City, and that was due to financial aid needs. That was mostly met by the organization, so I only had to pay for my plane tickets. And that was a really great opportunity to be able to go and work and intern and write a story that ended up being published about American expats living in Mexico and their opinions on the election. So Harvard, that was an opportunity funded and sponsored by Harvard. They also have opportunities. I had friends that worked in international, banking and finance. I had friends that worked in community organizations in Mexico City. So that's just one example from one city. Again, that there's also a program in Chile. There's also programs besides Latin America. So that was just an example. And there's also so much funding available, especially for public service and social sciences, where their opportunities tend to not maybe have a stipend. Harvard does have opportunities available for you to go and apply to have a stipend to go and pursue those interests if that's something that you'd be interested in.
Okay. Oh, I don't know why I got muted. Sorry, guys. So there's another question about being in the Harvard band. If any of us have been in the Harvard band, do we find that they attract mainly students who concentrate in music, and if it is hard to get for people who play music recreationally to get in? I don't know if I can speak to the band aspect. I know a couple of people in it, and I think that people come from definitely different levels of sort of like practice, and for sure, it's not necessarily for students who are majoring in music. I think the band definitely pulls from people from probably every single one of the like 49 different majors. And then, I don't know if you guys want to add something, because I've never played an instrument before.
I'm not instrumentally talented either. But, personally, I know two people in the Harvard band. One of them is a art and architecture history concentrator. The other one is an English concentrator. So definitely not music oriented academically. And for recreational music, the one thing that always comes up to in my head is a really cool organization called Minuet. It's music in nursing homes using entertainment and its therapy. And so they basically know how to play their instruments very well, but they don't want to participate in an orchestra or the band. And so they get together and go to nursing homes and use their music talents as therapy. And so I think that's a great way for you to get involved in recreationally. And I know a few friends who do that. So I think there are multiple ways for you to express your talents without having to join the band. Or if you do want to join the band, don't be afraid of being yourself and studying whatever you want, because it really is for everyone. It's not like you have to major in music and also then be in the band, or if you're concentrating in government like me, you have to go to the IOP and participate in everything political like the Harvard Republicans or the Harvard Democrats. So yeah.
Yeah, I would say that just to add on for the band level, I think that Harvard is definitely a place where people are coming from all walks of life and all different backgrounds. So it would almost be to their not to their benefit for any organization to say, oh, only people who have this experience, because most likely very few people are going to fit that qualification, because Harvard does attract a very wide and varied class. So I think that if the concern is about not being able to join band because of a concern about having to have some certain requirement, I would say that not to worry about that. And I think that the question about extracurriculars isn't really like, can I join or can I not, like, will they let me or not? It's more so about like, how will I fit this commitment that I want into my time and into my schedule. I think like that's more of the concern, not the concern, or more so just like the thought process behind how you're scheduling it out, and not to be too concerned about, oh, I won't be allowed to do this or that, because I think that if you're passionate and willing to devote the time to the organization, then you'd most likely be able to participate.
Okay, great. So I guess maybe one of our last questions, since we've gotten to a lot of the big ones about what it's like to be here, and because we sort of opened this up with the intention of talking about our cultural engagement, can we speak about cultural life on campus, our engagement in cultural organizations, and what the cultural community has meant to us?
Okay, I'll start. So I think that on campus, I'm involved in Fuerza Latina, which is the pan-Latino organization, which means that it brings in members from all types of all backgrounds and nationalities of the Latino community. So I'm the political chair of Fuerza Latina, so that means that I'm sort of our political arm and representative. So if an organization wants a co-sponsorship on an immigration debate, or wants, we were able to partner with the IOP and get front row seats to Representative Joaquin Castro give a speech in the IOP, who's one of my personal heroes. So he was a congressman from San Antonio. So that was just, an amazing, incredible experience. And I think that it's definitely, as touched upon a lot here before, there is no one type of, Harvard Latino student. There's no one type of Harvard X student. So I mean, there are Latino students that I'm friends with who are politically engaged like me, who do engineering, who do arts, who do computer science, who do so many different things. So I think that within our differences, we do have that commonality and sharing a background. And I think that creating a cultural space where we're able to meet once a week and just have like a study break, have like nachos and churros, or and watch movies, or just like hang out and have dinner together. And I think it's definitely a space to where if for what reason I can't make it, I won't be I won't sort of like be penalized or anything, because that's like, it's sort of like family. It's like if you can, that's great, and that's the space that you want to go and just relax and unwind and have fun with friends. But if you can't, then you can always just go next week. So I think that I've enjoyed how it's a very supportive community. It's one that I coming in as a freshman, like they're like a senior. A Harvard senior like came up to me, and I was having trouble with figuring out like how to write a resume and a cover letter, and he literally looked over mine from Fuerza Latina and was like, hey, this is how you should consider doing this. And as someone who's never written that before, I found that to be really incredibly helpful. So there's a lot of mentorship that goes on, as Kat talked about earlier. I'm in her big sib, little sib. I'm a big sib right now to a freshman, and we are really great, almost like I would say almost best friends, because we're just like so similar, and it's just so there is a lot of great mentorship opportunity that goes in within different cultural affinity groups. So I would say that it's a very community, but yet a very well-defined and welcoming community. That's how I would describe it.
And then from my side, as a Filipino American in the community, I didn't even join Harvard Philippine Forum until my sophomore year. As I said earlier, I joined the Chinese Students Association because honestly, all these groups, regardless of whether you identify as that ethnicity or race, it's a very welcoming community. So I was part of CSA during my freshman year, but then I met other Filipinos on campus and realized like, wow, this is actually like a pretty good community. It's small, but it's very tight-knit. And so I joined it my sophomore year and eventually became co-president actually later that year. And so I think I realized that also coming from South Florida, where there wasn't a lot of Filipinos, or not even a lot of Asian Americans, I became more aware of who I am as an Asian American by coming to Harvard and by joining these groups, because I honestly was one of the only Asian American students at my high school. And so when I came to Harvard, I saw, wow, like there are more than just one. There's more than just one Asian American in my school now, and it's a great experience to see more of the experiences that other people had in other states like California or Hawaii, and what that meant for them as Asian Americans from different parts of the country. So I think this allowed me to just become more confident in who I am whenever I say I'm Filipino American or Asian American. What does that really mean? I then have the experiences from joining CSA or HPF, and even studying Japanese as well, and having studied abroad in Japan. Like, I'm just more culturally aware of who I am as an Asian American and what that means to me personally.
Awesome, thank you. I guess one little thing I'll add about that is that, like, we've kind of touched upon it, but our campus community is like constantly surprising me in the sense that, like, not only are people super interested, of course, like you have Harvard students coming to Harvard to like share what they're interested in, but you kind of need people on the other end to be like curious about what other people are interested in and be super receptive. And so I'm always like excited that people are like excited to learn about things that are like seemingly so different from themselves. And so I think for me, like, I found it most impressive. The one of the South Asian dance companies here puts on a big show called Gungru, which is like a big celebration of a lot of like South Asian dance types. And the number of students who had never experienced that or like been involved before who performed in the dance this year was so awesome. Like, I learned how to do like traditional Gungru dance. And I think like I'm not the only person who was like willing to just sort of like jump into something new and seemingly foreign and like really sort of like be curious and like embrace and be like thoughtful about like what other people are up to and what other cultural organizations they're involved in. So people are not only like excited in a sort of like selfish way, like, right, like what makes them happy, but also like, what are my roommates doing, what are my friends doing, like how can I get excited about what they're doing too. So I guess that's what I'll say about that. I think that's all of the questions. Did you guys want to add anything else before we, I guess, sort of say goodbye and thank you all for joining us virtually?
Definitely. So if you do have any more questions, please feel free to email us. The Undergraduate Minority Recruitment Program is always welcome to answer any of your questions. You can email us at umrp@fas.harvard.edu. And you can also give us a call at 617-495-1514.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, well, congrats to all of our newly accepted students out there. Hopefully you get to come hang out with us. We'd love to have you, and no matter what, we wish you all the best. So thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.